Rick Martel wasn't the loudest, the biggest, or the flashiest guy in wrestling. But when it came to being a straight-up villain, nobody did it cleaner, cooler, or meaner. From real-life betrayals to on-screen showdowns, Martel built his name by feuding with some of wrestling's biggest personalities. And in a few cases, the hate was 100% genuine. Let's look at 5 wrestlers Rick Martel absolutely couldn't stand, inside and outside the ring. If you're talking about real hate, it starts with Tom Zenk. This one wasn't part of a storyline. It was personal. Martel and Zenk teamed up in the mid-1980s as the Can-Am Connection. They were young, good-looking, and had great chemistry in the ring. Fans loved them. They even opened WrestleMania 3 with a huge win over Bob Orton and Don Morocco. Everyone thought they were on their way to becoming the next big tag team. Then, just like that, Zenk quit the WWF. No warning, no farewell match, nothing. The rumor was that money was at the heart of it. Zenk claimed Martel had secretly cut his own deal with the WWF, making 3 times more money than him. Martel, he said, had told him they were being paid equally as a team. Zenk felt completely betrayed and later said Martel used me to get where he wanted to go. To him, it wasn't just about pay. It was about trust and respect. Martel told a very different story. He said there was no secret deal, and that he simply didn't talk about money with anyone, ever, because of bad experiences in the past. He claimed both men made the same amount. Martel also said Zenk just couldn't handle the tough life of a wrestler on the road and decided to walk away. No one really knows the full truth, but what's clear is that the friendship never recovered. The WWF sided with Martel and basically erased Zenk from the story. They didn't even mention his name again, only calling him Rick Martel's former partner. They wanted to protect Martel's image, not the guy who walked out. Zenk was bitter for years, and the two never made peace. When Zenk passed away in 2017, they still hadn't spoken. It was a real, lasting grudge that went way beyond wrestling. Next up is Tito Santana, and this one was all about great storytelling. After the Can-Am Connection ended, Martel teamed with Santana to form Strikeforce. The two clicked right away. They were both fan favorites and great wrestlers, and in 1987, they even won the WWF Tag Team titles. For a while, they were one of the most popular teams in the company. Then came WrestleMania 5 in 1989. During a match against the Brainbusters, Santana accidentally knocked Martel out cold with his flying forearm. When Martel came to, instead of helping his partner, he just walked out. He left Santana alone in the ring to get beat down. Fans were shocked. That moment turned Martel into a villain overnight. He went from being the nice guy to the arrogant jerk. He started calling himself the Model and said he was tired of carrying Santana. He made it sound like Santana had been riding his coattails the whole time. It was all part of the show, but it worked because it felt real. Fans already knew Martel had a reputation for ditching partners, so this storyline hit close to home. The two feuded for months, trading insults and matches. Santana was the heartbroken friend who wanted payback, and Martel was the egotistical star who thought he was better than everyone else. It was one of the best heel turns of that era, and helped Martel reinvent himself completely. On number 3, Rick Martel's feud with Jake Roberts was one of the most creative moments of his career. It was not about wrestling skill or fancy moves. It was about characters, mind games, and one unforgettable idea that had everyone talking. It started on the Brother Love show. Martel, playing his arrogant model character, decided to humiliate Jake. He took his signature cologne called Arrogance and sprayed it right into Jake's eyes. Jake was blinded and had to be helped out of the ring. Fans were furious. Jake was one of the toughest and most respected wrestlers in the company, and seeing him hurt like that made everyone want to see Martel pay for it. The feud worked because the two men were complete opposites. Martel cared about looks, fashion, and fame. Jake was cold, dark, and intense. It was beauty versus danger. The story built for months and ended at WrestleMania 7 in 1991 with one of the strangest matches in WWF history. It was called the blindfold match. Both men wore black hoods over their heads so they could not see. It was a way to make Martel experience what he had done to Jake. The match itself was more about the crowd than the wrestling. Fans yelled directions to help Jake find Martel. Every time Jake pointed in the right direction, the crowd got louder. Every time Martel swung and missed, people laughed. It was simple, but it worked. The drama and the noise made it exciting to watch. When Jake finally caught Martel and hit his famous DDT move, the crowd exploded. The fans got the revenge they wanted, and Jake got his moment. Even Jake said later that the match was genius. He said it was the easiest match of his life because the story and the crowd did all the work. People were invested from the first moment to the last. The match did have some funny moments. At one point, Jake was clearly peeking through the holes in his hood, but nobody cared. The story was strong enough that it didn't matter. This feud showed how good Martel was at making people care. He didn't need to do wild stunts or technical wrestling. He just needed to play his part and make fans feel something. The whole angle with the arrogance spray proved that Martel could create huge reactions just by being himself. It was one of the best examples of how wrestling can be more about emotion and storytelling than athletic moves. Martel's vanity and Jake's intensity created magic. By 1992, Rick Martel was an established bad guy. Shawn Michaels was on his way to becoming one too. Both were good-looking, full of confidence, and completely in love with themselves. So when the WWF put them together, it was a perfect match of egos. The connection came through sensational Sherry, who was managing Shawn at the time. Sherry loved drama and knew exactly how to stir trouble. She flirted with both men, and it became a contest to see who could impress her more. Their match at SummerSlam 1992 was hilarious and one of the most entertaining of the night. The special rule was that neither man could hit the other in the face. Both characters were too proud of their looks to risk a bruise. That rule made the match funny and different. They kept trying to outpose each other, showing off their muscles and smiles. Every few minutes, one of them would stop to wink at Sherry or flex for the crowd. It was pure comedy, but it fit both of their characters perfectly. The ending was just as over the top. Sherry pretended to faint at ringside, which distracted both wrestlers. They both ran to help her and ended up arguing instead. The referee counted them both out. No winner, no loser. Just two egos too big to focus on the match. This ending was planned on purpose. The company wanted to protect both men. Shawn was being pushed as the next big star, and Martel was still an important villain. A draw meant neither of them looked weak. The funny thing was that Sherry ended up being the real winner. She had played both men from the start. She fainted just to get attention and left both of them looking foolish. In the story, she later admitted she did it to test Shawn's loyalty. The rivalry was short, but it showed how flexible Martel was as a performer. One month he could be cruel and serious, like in his feud with Jake Roberts. The next he could be charming and ridiculous, trying not to mess up his face. Even though the match ended without a winner, it gave fans a good laugh and showed off both men's characters. It was a light break on a serious pay-per-view card and proved Martel could handle comedy as well as drama. By this point, Rick Martel had mastered his model character. He didn't need titles or long promos. All he needed was his spray bottle, his mirror, and his smug smile. He could make fans boo him just by walking down the aisle. The rivalries with Jake Roberts and Shawn Michaels showed two sides of him. With Jake, he was cruel and arrogant. With Shawn, he was vain and funny. Both worked perfectly. Martel knew how to make a story come alive, and that is why he remains one of the best bad guys of his time. While his feuds with guys like Jake Roberts and Shawn Michaels showed off his character and personality, his battles with Bret Hart and Randy Savage proved something deeper. They showed that Martel could go toe-to-toe with the very best in the world and make every match feel important. Bret, the Hitman, Hart, and Rick Martel had several great matches in the early 1990s. They didn't always get the spotlight, but anyone who's seen them knows those matches were gold. Both men were incredible technicians, and both took pride in putting on a smart, clean, realistic match. When Martel went up against Bret for the Intercontinental Championship, fans knew it would be good. Martel didn't have to cheat or rely on wild stunts to get attention. He could keep up with Bret, counter his moves, and make him work hard for every pin or hold. One of their most talked about matches came in 1992. Bret had just beaten Roddy Piper, and was starting to make his name as a singles champion. Martel gave him one of his toughest tests. He didn't make it easy. Bret had to dig deep and win the match with a quick inside cradle, not his usual sharpshooter. That small detail said a lot. It showed that Martel was such a good wrestler that Bret had to surprise him to win. That's what made Martel valuable. He made champions look even better by pushing them to their limits. When you beat Rick Martel, it meant something. It meant you could handle pressure. It meant you could wrestle at a high level. Bret later said he respected guys like Martel because they made wrestling feel real. Fans could watch their matches and believe every move mattered. Martel wasn't there just to fill time. He was there to test you, to make you earn it. Even though Martel never became WWF champion, he was always close. He often found himself in the mix with top stars like Randy Savage and even Hulk Hogan. That says a lot about how much trust the company had in him. His short feud with Macho Man Randy Savage in 1991 showed how strong Martel's reputation was. Savage was one of the biggest stars in the world, and Martel was chosen to go against him because everyone knew he could deliver. Savage was wild, emotional, and unpredictable. Martel was smooth, confident, and technical. When they faced off, the contrast was perfect. Savage's intensity clashed with Martel's cool arrogance, and that made their matches fun to watch. Even though Martel didn't come out on top, he made sure Savage looked like $1,000,000. That was Martel's gift. He was always the guy who made others look great without ever looking weak himself. Fans might have booed him for being arrogant, but they always respected his skill. You could hear it in the crowd reactions. People might chant against him, but they'd still cheer when he pulled off a slick move or reversed a hold. Martel was that rare type of villain who gave everything to make a match better. He didn't need the spotlight every night. He just needed a chance to show what he could do. Rick Martel's rivalries with Bret Hart and Randy Savage showed why he was so respected backstage. There was no drama, no real hatred, no wild storylines. It was just professional competition. Martel brought out the best in whoever he faced. When you look back, Martel's career had a nice balance. With guys like Tom Zenk, he had real-life tension and personal issues. With Jake Roberts and Shawn Michaels, he got creative with gimmicks and storytelling. And with Hart and Savage, he showed pure wrestling at its best. He could play any role the company needed. Heel, tag partner, technical rival, comic relief, he did it all. And he did it with class. Even fans who didn't love the model character admitted Martel was one of the most polished wrestlers of his time. He had timing, ring awareness, and that smooth style that made every move look effortless. Many wrestlers who came after him have said that Martel was a standard setter for how to make a match look good. When you look back at Rick Martel's career, it's clear he had different kinds of rivalries. Some were real, some were scripted, but all of them helped define who he was. His fallout with Tom Zenk was the only one that was truly personal. That fight over money and trust created a real grudge that never healed. It was messy and sad, especially because they had once been close friends. His feuds with Jake Roberts and Shawn Michaels were all about character. Jake brought out Martel's cruel, arrogant side. Shawn brought out his vain, comedic side. Both of those rivalries proved how creative Martel could be when the story was right. Then you have Tito Santana, Bret Hart, and Randy Savage, guys who represented pure professionalism. Those matches were about respect, skill, and proving who could out-wrestle who. Put it all together, and you see why Rick Martel was one of the most complete performers of his era. He could be loved, hated, funny, serious, technical, or theatrical. He understood every part of what made wrestling work. Even though he never became world champion, he didn't need to. Martel was the measuring stick, the guy everyone had to get through on their way to the top. And for fans who remember him in his prime, that role made him unforgettable.